we're gonna start with our feet hip width apart. We're standing nice and tall. If you have an elastic band, grab your elastic band. If you don't worry about it. If you do, you're gonna hold about shoulder width apart. And we're just gonna start with some nice deep breaths as we lift our arms up. So if you do have the band, you just have a light tension in the band, and then you slowly lower down. And then again, inhale, nice deep breath. Keeping the shoulders down and away from the ears, keeping a light tension on the band, and then slowly lower. And if you don't have a band, you're just lifting and lowering your arms with your breath. Again, inhale, nice deep breath. And then exhale as you lower down. We're going to do that again. We're going to keep our arms overhead. So inhale, nice deep breath. Keep your arms raised. And you're going to turn to one side. And as you turn to one side, think about your hips staying still and just your rib cage rotating. And then again, inhale as you rotate to the opposite side, keeping the hips still and just the rib cage rotates. And then 2 more to each side. And again, if you don't have a band, your arms are just up in the air, or you can place them across your chest. And you're just rotating from one side to the other. So 1 more on each side, keeping the shoulders down and away from the ears, a light tension on the band, and our pelvis is staying nice and square. And then we come back to center and then lower down. And then we're going to go into some side bends. So again, inhale, take a nice deep breath. If you want to clasp your hands together overhead, you can do that. And then you're going to inhale and side stretch. So my pelvis stays still as I fan the ribs open. Exhale, come back to center. Same thing on the opposite side. Inhale as you fan open. Exhale, back to center. Again, keeping the shoulders down and away from the ears. Inhale as you fan away. Exhale, come back to center. Inhale, up and over. Exhale, back to center. 2 more. Inhale away. Exhale, back. And last one. And then slowly lower down. Good. And then just roll those shoulders out, whether you had a band or not. And then we're going to lie down on our mat. If you do have your band, just keep it nice and close. So we're going to find our neutral. So feet are going to be hip width apart. And then you want to level out the hip bones and the pubic bone. So if we do have anyone new, just to review, we make a triangle with our pointer fingers and thumbs. We place them on top of our hip bones and our pubic bone. If you take a peek at your triangle is level or parallel to the ceiling. If your triangle is pointing up towards the ceiling and your back is flat, that is called imprint. So right now, just start by rocking from your neutral to your imprint. So we're just rocking from where our triangle is level and into our flat back. The whole time, try to keep your glutes nice and relaxed. So keeping the bum relaxed, using the front side of the body. Another way to think of this is think about shortening the distance between the hips and the ribs and then lengthening it. Exhale as you melt the low back into the mat and then inhale as you lengthen out. Exhale as you melt. Inhale as you lengthen. 1 more. Good. So picture a marble in the center of your pelvis. Your pelvis is a teeter-totter. Keep the knees nice and still. If the knees move, the movement is too big. You're going to think about rolling the marble towards one hip. So one hip pushes down towards the floor. You come back to center, level out the hip bones, and then you press the opposite hip down. Come back to center, and then the other side. So you're alternating, rolling the marble towards one hip, come back to center, Roll the marble over to the other hip. Come back to center. Inhale to one side. Exhale back to center. Inhale to the opposite side. And then come back to center. Good. So, if you do have an elastic band, you are going to take your elastic band and place it around your thigh and cross it so that one end is in each hand. If you don't have an elastic band, don't worry. It just creates a little bit of a different sensation having the elastic band. So again, find our neutral. We want those hip bones and pubic bone nice and level. So the tailbone is anchored into the mat. I'm keeping the shoulders nice and relaxed. So I'm not tensing up into my shoulders, especially if you have the elastic band. So a nice way to hold it is between your thumb and your pointer finger so that you're not death gripping onto that band, and then elbows are in contact with the mat. From there, exhale. Think about pulling those lower abdominals in as you bring the knee up to tabletop, and then you slowly lower back down. And then again, keep that tailbone anchored. Exhale as you draw that thigh up, bringing it up to tabletop, and then nice and slow back down. So whether you have a band or not, you're still thinking about lightly drawing your belly button in and keeping your tailbone anchored into the mat. The band just gives a little bit of assist so that you're not gripping into your quads, that you're trying to focus into those lower abdominals. We're going to do one more. Plus you get some hamstring activation on the lower. So again, for the next exercise, doesn't matter if you have the band or not, you're going to come up to your tabletop. Think about your femur sinking deep into that hip. So if you're feeling any grippiness, try to let that leg relax and be heavy into that hip. We're going to do circles in the hip joint. So we want to keep the pelvis nice and still. So I like to think of your hip as the mixing bowl and your thigh is the spatula. And you're scraping the cookie dough off the edges of the mixing bowl, but don't tip your mixing bowl. Inhale to one side, exhale around. Last one in that direction, and then we're going to switch. Inhale as you go in the opposite direction. Inhale up. And again, trying to keep that pelvis nice and still. Make sure we're still relaxed through the upper body. Wide across the collarbones, and then those lower abdominals are just lightly drawn in. We got one more circle in this direction. And then you're going to slowly lower down. So we're going to switch legs. So the band can go behind the thigh on the opposite leg. Double check your neutral and make sure that tailbone is still anchored. Hip bones and pubic bone are lightly engaged. Wide across the collarbones. When you're ready, inhale to prepare. Exhale as you use those abdominals to come up to tabletop. And then resist the weight of the leg as it slowly lowers. And then again, exhale as you come up. Inhale as you lower. One thing to pay attention to is the pelvis. So if the pelvis is shifting, you might think of a heavy rock on the opposite side of the pelvis to keep it anchored as that other leg lifts and lowers. So for me, my left side, I like to kind of drop off on the left side. So if I picture a heavy rock on my right hip, that's going to help me stay nice and anchored as I lift that leg up and then control it back down. We got one more on this side. Exhale as you're stabilizing through that pelvis and then slowly lower down. So we're going to stay at the top and we're going to do our circles. Inhale as you cross the body. Exhale as you circle around. Inhale away. You might notice a difference in the size of your circles, especially if it's more difficult to stabilize. Inhale across. Exhale around. We got one more of these and then we're going to change our direction. Inhale and exhale. Again, focusing on that pelvis staying nice and steady. Lower abdominals drawing in. Inhale away. Exhale in. We got one more. And then keep those abdominals on as you slowly lower the leg. Good. So, if you do have a band, place it between your hands and your arms are going to be extended. Just lower them down towards your thighs. If you don't have a band, just have your arms nicely resting at your side on the mat. From here, inhale as you float the arms up towards the ceiling. Think about your shoulders sinking down into the shoulder socket, so you're reaching down towards the mat, and then control it back down. And then again, inhale as you lift, and then nice and slow back down. And then again, inhale as you come up, and then exhale back down. On the next one, we're going to stay up, and then again, just try to keep a light tension in your band. Inhale as you reach for the ceiling, so the back of my shoulders lift the mat, and then lower back down. Inhale as you lift the back of the shoulders off the mat, and then lower back down. Inhale up, exhale down. One more. Inhale up, exhale down. You don't need the band for the next one, just put it to your side. Make sure that your ribs aren't popping. I'm famous for popping those ribs, so you want to think back of the rib cage down towards the mat. Arms are going to lift up and let those arms be heavy into those shoulder sockets. And then we're going to do arm circles. Inhale away, exhale around. So as I do it, I don't want the ribs to pop to reach the mat. I need to keep the rib cage nicely placed as the humerus rotates in the shoulder socket. And then we're going to change directions. This whole time, I'm still keeping those lower abdominals on. So we want to keep the lower abdominals engaged, keep that pelvic stability as we're working the arms. Last one. And then we're going to flip onto our stomach. So, you can rest your head on your hands. I want you to find your pelvic neutral. So you want to think about pushing your pubic bone into the mat. And one thing you can do is place your hands underneath your hip bone. So if you're relaxed, you'll feel your hip bones on your hands. And then if you push your pubic bone into the mat, you don't necessarily feel your hip bones lift off, but they'll feel lighter. So there's less pressure on your hands to help you have that tilt into your neutral. From there, I want you to extend one arm out to the side. Your thumb is pointing up towards the ceiling. Think about squeezing the shoulder blade towards the midline and then slowly lower. So I'm just getting that scapular movement. I'm pinching the shoulder blade towards the midline and then release. Exhale up, inhale down. Exhale up, inhale down. One more. And then we're going to switch sides. So again, make sure your thumb is pointing up towards the ceiling. Externally rotated. Feel that shoulder blade pull towards the midline. And then release. Exhale up. Inhale down. Exhale up. Inhale down. Two more. And then I want you to bring your forearms to the side of your body. So your hands are just ahead of your shoulders. You're going to think of a marble underneath your nose. Roll that marble away. Slide the shoulders down the back of the rib cage as you lift your chest. And then slowly lower. So this is really small. It's just my sternum is lifting up. Excuse me. I'm not going into a huge back bend. So it's just a thoracic extension, and I've still got my pubic bone into the mat, and then slowly lower back down. Inhale as you float up, and then exhale back down. Inhale up, rolling that marble away with your nose. You're looking at the front edge of your mat. You're not looking out in front of you, because that would extend your neck. So you want to look at the front edge of your mat, and then lower back down. One more. And then we're going to take that last exercise that we had our arms extended. You're going to float your head, peel your chest up. But think of an airplane, and that airplane is going to tip off to one side, and I'm keeping the tension between my shoulder blades, and then I come back to center, and then tip to the other side. So I have a little bit of an advantage because I am on a raised mat. You're going to feel the floor. That's okay. You can push that hand into the floor and let the other arm come up so that you maintain that squeeze between the shoulder blades, and then come back to neutral. Same thing on the opposite side. And we're going to do 2 more, 1 on each side. Inhale as you rotate. Come back to center. Inhale as you rotate. Come back to center. And then lower down. Just reach back either into your child pose or your cat. Whatever feels good on your low back. And then once you've had a good stretch, I want you to come back on to your stomach again. You're going to be on your forearms now. So elbows are directly underneath your shoulders, and your forearms are pushing down into the mat. You're going to press down into the forearms so that you're lifting out of your shoulders, and then sink. So you're just getting that scapular positioning to start. Press down into the forearms, lift out of the shoulders, and then back down. And this whole time, I want you to think, push your pubic bone into the mat and lightly draw those lower abdominals in to give you some trunk stability. And then lower back down. And then 2 more. Press the floor away and then back. And last one. And then I want you to stay lifted into your shoulders. So you're pressing that mat away, your lower abdominals are on, and you're pushing your pubic bone into the mat. From there, I want you to try and pull one heel towards your bum. And then lengthen back out. Same thing on the opposite side. Pull the heel towards your bum and lengthen out. Now, if you're tight in your hips, what's going to happen is your hips are going to lift up towards the ceiling. So I want you, as you curl your heel towards your bum, squeeze your butt and push your hips forward. So you're pushing that pubic bone into the mat to avoid that hip flexion. Pull the heel towards your bum. Don't worry about how far your knee bends. Focus on the pubic bone staying into the mat and keeping those lower abdominals on. We're going to do 1 more on each side. And then again, you're going to lower down, reach back into your child pose or your cat to stretch out your back. So we've got 1 more prone exercise. We're going to come back onto our stomach. So don't worry about how high you come off. This is more about coordination, working opposite sides of the brain. So if you think of your arms extended out to the sides, you're going to lift one hand off, bend the knee, reach for the foot. Don't worry if you touch or not. Come back down. Same thing on the opposite side. Reach and back. So again, don't worry whether you touch. Make sure your abs are on to support your back. Don't force it. Opposite arm and leg. So you're doing whatever range of motion works for your body. You're thinking about supporting your back by pulling those lower abdominals in. And then we're just working on the coordination, because I bet you there's someone who tried to do the same side instead of opposite arm and leg. And then 1 more on each side. Good. And then we're going to come onto our side. So, knees are bent. My heels line up with my sit bone. So my knees are forward. They're not pulled back. So think there's a bit of a flexion at your waist. Elbow is directly underneath the shoulder. So again, we're going to just place the shoulder to start. I want you to sink into that bottom rib. Set the shoulder. Draw the ribs to find your neutral. And then again, sink down. Lift through the ribs, set that shoulder, find your neutral. So you want a straight line along your waistline. Inhale as you sink down. Exhale as you lift. The head should be in line with the body as well. Last one, we're going to sink and lift. From there, hold this, so strong shoulder lifted through the ribs. Lift your hips. and lower back down. Keep the shoulder. Lift the hips and lower back down. Next one. Lift the hips. Hold. Can you straighten your bottom leg? If you cannot straighten your bottom leg, leave your hips down on the floor. Lower abdominals are on. Shoulder is strong. Lift and lower that top leg. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. So I want to ideally be in a straight line. Strong shoulder. Strong obliques. Last one. Lower down. And we're going to try one more variation in this position. You're going to lift the hips up. So strong shoulder, strong waist. Float the foot off the floor. Try to keep the body still as the leg comes forward and back. Inhale forward and back. Inhale and exhale. Two more. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Slowly lower. Push yourself up to seated. If you can, sit in a mermaid. This is not ideal for everyone. There can be some knee issues, some hip issues. So you might straighten out a leg, whether it be the top leg or the opposite leg. Depends on which hip, which knee is the issue. From that position, if your top leg is bent, grab your shin. Otherwise, just hand on the floor. And then side bend and stretch away. And in this position, I want you to think about breathing into those ribs. 3 nice deep breaths. Last one. Good. Slowly come out of it. We're going to slide over to the opposite side. So, again, elbow is directly underneath the shoulder. We want the heels lining up with the sit bones so the knees and the hips are flexed. We're just starting with the shoulder girdle. So let yourself sink into the ribs. Lift through the ribs, press through the forearm as you come up. And then lower back down. And then exhale as you lift through the ribs, set the shoulder, try to find that nice long line which includes our head, and then lower down. Sometimes when we come into this side position, it's easy to tilt the head because we're thinking upright. That's what we're used to. So it can be challenging on those neck stabilizers to actually be in that side position and actually be in neutral. So if you're feeling a burning in the neck, that's not uncommon. We're going to hold on this one. Keep that forearm pressing into the mat. Press through the shins to lift the hips. And then lower back down. And then again, exhale as you lift. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. 2 more. And then we're going to hold on this one. Try straightening out your top leg. If you're having a difficult time, just lower the body down. Keep the shoulder and the abdominals as the top leg lifts and lowers. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale as you float up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. 1 more. Lower the hips down. If you need to reset anything, reset, because sometimes we wiggle because the position's uncomfortable. Set the shoulder, lift through the waistline, lift the hips, lift the leg hip height. Inhale as you try to come forward. Exhale back. And if the side plank is too difficult, just lie on your side. Inhale forward. Exhale back. 2 more. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Last one. Slowly lower down. You're going to push yourself up into your mermaid. So again, if this is not ideal for your knees or hips, straighten out your legs. And then we're just going into a nice side stretch. 3 nice deep breaths into the side of the rib cage. Neck and shoulders nice and relaxed. Good. And then we're going to come onto our back again. Again, if you have an elastic band, I want your elastic band, you're going to place it between your hands and then put your hands down on the mat. So the band goes across your thighs. If you don't have a band, don't worry, you'll still get some benefit out of it. Press through the heels, squeeze the glutes, lift the hips up, and then slowly lower down. So I do want a neutral spine, so I should have said that in the beginning. Find your neutral, so think hip bones and pubic bone are nice and level. Lower abdominals are on. Press the hips up into the band and then lower back down. Stay nice and wide across the collarbones. Sometimes we want to roll forward through the shoulders, so we want to think press the back of the arms into the mat. Keep wide across the collarbones as we lift up, find that glute connection. And then lower back down. And then again, exhale as we lift. Inhale back down. 2 more. Really focus on that glute connection. Feel that squeeze. If you want a greater challenge, try lifting your toes off the mat. Keep the heels connected. And lower back down. Good. So if you have the band, you're going to keep tension by pulling out on the band, but everyone will do the same arm movement. So first you're going to lift the hips. So we're actually going to articulate through the spine. So tuck the tailbone, fire the glutes. Peel the spine up off the mat. Take your arms overhead. So you're reaching nice and long. Keep those hips lifted. Now keep your arms long as you roll through the spine. So 1 vertebrae at a time as you slowly roll down. Bring the arms back down towards your hips. Again, tuck the tailbone, fire the glutes, peel the spine 1 vertebrae at a time up. Lengthen the arms up overhead. Try to keep those elbows long. They're going to want to bend. Sink through the sternum, stay wide across the collarbone, 1 vertebrae at a time as you slowly roll down. We're going to do 2 more of those. So again, bring your arms back down towards your side, tuck the tailbone, fire the glutes, peel the spine up, take the arms overhead, sink through the sternum, 1 vertebrae at a time. So slowly placing 1 pearl of a pearl necklace down at a time in a nice straight line. Last one, arms come back down. Tuck the tailbone, fire the glutes, peel the spine up. Inhale as the arms go overhead. Exhale, sink 1 vertebrae at a time. Make sure those knees are reaching away. Really connect into those glutes and articulate through the spine on the way down. Good. So, if you have an elastic band, place it over the balls of your toes, and then you're going to extend that leg up into the air. Your free leg can lengthen out on the mat. If you don't have a band, you're just going to grab behind your thigh. So free leg is still extended up into the air, but you're just grabbing the back of your thigh, and then everyone is pulling their leg towards them. So let that femur sink nice and deep into the hip. Think nice and long through the back of the leg. And from this position, point and flex. So even if we're grabbing behind the back of the leg, or if we have the band, we don't have to worry about whether the leg is perfectly straight. That's dependent on hamstring flexibility. Then, from here, think of your thigh turning, because it's easy to turn my foot, so that's not what I want. I want to think about my thigh rotating. So I'm going to turn my thigh out, turn my thigh in. So it's deep in the hip. Turn the thigh out, turn the thigh in. Turn the thigh out, turn the thigh in. So that rotation is happening deep in that hip socket. From there, if you have the elastic band, have it in the opposite hand. Keep your hips down on the mat. I can't emphasize that enough because the urge is to let the opposite side lift. Let the leg go out to the side. So I usually use both hands. If you don't have the band, grab behind the thigh. Use the same arm as leg, and then just pull the leg out to the side. So I am using my elbow to slightly support the weight of my leg. Again, don't worry about how straight your leg is. We're focusing on the hip joint and the hip staying down. Take a nice deep breath. Exhale, bring it back to center. Keep that hip down. Draw across the body. And with this one, if you don't have the band, just focus on hip staying down. Let the weight of the leg go across the body, and you should still get a good stretch on the outside of the leg. In this position, I want everyone to hold. And again, point and flex the foot. And really emphasize the reach through the heel. And that's going to really send that zing down the back of the leg. So we're typically tight through the IT band and the femoral nerve. Excellent. Come back to center, and we're going to switch legs. So the opposite foot is going to go into the band if you have a band. Extend that leg up into the air. Take a nice deep breath. Let that femur sink deep into that hip. Relaxing the opposite leg on the floor. And then just go into your point and flex. So you point the toes and then flex the foot. Inhale in one direction. Exhale in the other. And then we're going to hold. Remember, it comes from the thigh. Rotate the thigh to one side, then the other. So think about that femur rotating in the hip. Let that hip be nice and heavy into the hip socket. And then if the opposite hand has the band, and you're going to let the leg go out to the side. Try to keep that pelvis down. Feel that inner thigh stretch. And if you're using your arm, you just kind of support the weight of the leg as it opens up. Again, focusing on the pelvis staying nice and square. Take a nice deep breath. Come back to center. Then it's going to go across the body, feeling the stretch along the back side of that leg. And then again, point and flex. Take a nice deep inhale, exhale, come back to center. Slowly lower that leg. You don't need your band. Just bring your knees into your chest and rock around, giving them a nice hug. And that's today's workout.